guys. All right, I'm going to go ahead and read chapter 12. I will post both of these at the same time, so if you want to go 2 chapters ahead, you can. Also, yeah, really enjoying the story, so let's see what happens. Chapter 12. Whew. Josh spotted an opening between 2 cars, a VW Beetle and a Lexus. He pushed his foot to the floor, and the heavy car shot forward, but the gap wasn't quite wide enough. The SUV's girl struck the side mirrors on the other 2 cars and snapped them off. Oops. Josh immediately took his foot off the gas. Keep going, Flamel ordered firmly. He had Sophie's phone in his hand and was talking urgently in a guttural, rasping language that sounded like nothing the twins had ever heard before. Deliberately, not looking in the rearview mirror, Josh roared across the bridge, ignoring the honks and shouts behind him. He shot along the outside lane, then cut into the middle lane, then back out again. Sophie braced herself against the dashboard, peering through half-closed eyes. She saw the car hit another side mirror. It came spinning almost slowly up onto the hood of their SUV, scoring a long scrape in the black paint before it bounced away. Don't even think about it, she muttered as a tiny open-topped Italian sports car spotted the same gap in the traffic that Josh was aiming for. The driver, an older man with far too many gold chains around his neck, put his foot down and raced for the gap. He didn't make it. The heavy SUV caught the rim front edge of the little car, just tapping it on the bumper. The sports car was flung away, spinning in a complete 360-degree turn on the crowded bridge, bouncing off 4 other cars in the process. Josh tore through the opening. Flamel twisted around in the seat, looking through the rear window at the chaos they had left in their wake. I thought you said you could drive, he murmured. I can drive, Josh said, surprised that his voice sounded so calm and steady. I just didn't say I was good at it. Do you think anyone got our license plates? He asked. This was nothing like one of his driving games. The palms of his hands were slick and wet, and beads of sweat were running down the sides of his face. A muscle twitched in his right leg from the effort of keeping the accelerator pressed hard to the floor. I think they've got other things to worry about, Sophie whispered. The crows had descended on the Golden Gate Bridge, thousands of them. They came in a black wave, cawing and screaming, wings cracking and snapping. They hovered over the cars, darting low, occasionally even landing on car roofs and hoods to peck at the metal and glass. Carts crashed and sideswiped one another along the entire length of the bridge. They've lost focus, Cathach said, watching the birds' behavior. They're looking for us, but they've forgotten our description. They have such tiny brains, she said dismissively. Something distracted their dark mistress, Nicholas Flamel said. Purnell, he said delightedly. I wonder what she did. Something dramatic, no doubt. She always did have a sense of the theatrical. But even as he was speaking, the birds rose into the air again, and then one as one, their black eyes turned in the direction of the fleeing black SUV. This time, when they cawed, it sounded like screams of triumph. They're coming back, Sophie said quickly, breathlessly. She realized that her heart was pumping hard against her ribcage. She looked at Flamel and the warrior for support, but their grim expressions gave her no comfort. Cathach looked at her and said, We're in trouble now. In a huge, black, feathered mass, the crows took off after the car. Most of the traffic on the bridge was now stalled. People sat frozen in terror in their cars as birds flowed foul and stinking over the roofs. The SUV was the only car moving. Josh had his foot pressed flat to the floor, and the needle on the speedometer hovered close to 80. He was becoming more comfortable with the controls. He hadn't hit anything for at least a minute. The end of the bridge was in sight. He grinned. They were going to make it. And then the huge crow landed on the hood. Sophie screamed, and Josh jerked the wheel, attempting to knock the evil-looking creature off, but it had hooks in its feet into the raised ridges on the hood. It cocked its head to one side, looking first at Josh, then Sophie, and then, in 2 short hops, it came right up to the windshield and deliberately peered inside, black eyes glittering. It pecked at the glass, and a tiny starred puncture mark appeared. It shouldn't be able to do that, Josh said, trying to keep his eyes on the road. The crow pecked again, and another hole appeared. Then there was a thump, followed by a second and a third, and 3 or more crows landed on the roof of the car. The metal roof pinged as the birds began to peck at it. I hate crows, Cathach sighed. She rooted through her bag and pulled out a set of nunchuka, 2 12-inch lengths of ornately curved wood, linked by 4.5 inches of chain. She tapped the sticks in the palm of her hand. Pity we haven't got a sunroof, she said. I could get out there and give them a little taste of this. Flamel pointed to where the long shaft of sunlight was coming through a pinhole in the roof. We may soon have. Besides, he added, these are not normal crows. 3 on the roof and the 1 on the hood are dire crows, the Morrigan's special pets. The huge bird on the hood tapped the windshield again, and this time its beak actually penetrated the glass. "I'm not sure what I can do," Scathach began. And then Sophie leaned over and hit the windshield wiper switch. The heavy blades activated and simply swept the bird off the hood in a flurry of feathers and a shrill croak of surprise. The red-haired warrior grinned. "Well, there is that, of course." Now the rest of the birds had reached the SUV. They settled on the vehicle in a great blanket. First dozens, then hundreds gathered on the roof, the hood, the doors, clutching every available opening. And one fell off for last grip, dozens more fought for its place. The noise inside the car was incredible as thousands of birds pecking and tapping at the metal and the glass, the doors. They tore into the rubber molding around the windows, ripped into the spare tire in the back of the SUV, tearing it to shreds. There were so many on the hood, pressed up against the windshield, that Josh couldn't see where he was going. He took his foot off the accelerator, and the car immediately started to slow. "Drive!" Flamel shouted. "If you stop, we are truly lost." "But I can't see." Flamel leaned through the seats and stretched out his right hand. Sophie suddenly saw the small circular tattoo on the underside of his wrist. A cross ran through the circle. The arms of the cross extended over the edges of the circle. For a single instant, it glowed. And then the alchemist snapped his fingers. A tiny ball of hissing, sizzling flame appeared on his fingertips. "Close your eyes," he commanded. Without waiting to see if they obeyed, he flicked it towards the glass. Even though they closed their eyelids, the twins could see the searing light that lit up the interior of the car. "Now drive," Nicholas Flamel commanded. When the twins opened their eyes, most of the crows were gone from the hood, and those few that remained looked dazed and shocked. "That's not going to hold them for long," Scotty said. She looked up as a razor-sharp beak punched a hole straight through the metal roof. She snapped out the nunchaku. I think it's like nunchucks is what we call them, but that's not what that looks like. Anyways, she held one stick in her hand while the other, attached to the short chain, shot out with explosive force and cracked against the beak embedded in the roof. There was a startled shriek, and the beak, slightly bent, disappeared. Sophie turned her head to peer in her side mirror. It was dangling off the car, barely held on by a shred of metal and some wire. She could see more birds, thousands of them, flying in to replace those that had been swept away, and she knew that they were not going to make it. There were simply too many of them. "Listen," Nicholas Flamel said suddenly. "I don't hear anything," Josh said grimly. Sophie was just about to agree with him when she heard the sound, and she suddenly felt the hairs on her arms prickle and rise. Low and lonely, the noise hovered just at the edge of her hearing. It was like a breeze. One moment sounding soft and gentle, the next louder, almost angry. A peculiar odor wafted into the car. "What is that smell?" Josh asked. "It smells like spicy oranges," Sophie said, breathing deeply. "Pomegranates," Nicholas Flamel said, and then the wind came. It howled across the bay, warm and exotic, smelling of cardamom and rosewater, lime and tarragon, and then it raced along the length of the Golden Gate Bridge, plucking the birds off the struts, lifting them off the cars, pulling them out of the air. Finally, the pomegranate-scented wind reached the SUV. One moment the car was surrounded by birds, the next they were gone, and the car was filled with the scent of the desert, of dry air and warm sand. Sophie hit a button, and the scarred, pitted window jerked down. She craned her neck out the SUV, breathing in the rich, scented air. The huge flock of birds was being pulled high into the sky, borne aloft in the breeze. When one escaped, one of the big dire crows, Sophie thought, it was quickly caught by a tendril of warm breeze and brushed back into the rest of the flock. From underneath, the mass of birds looked like a dirty cloud, and then the cloud dispersed as the birds scattered, leaving the sky blue and clear again. Sophie looked back along the length of the bridge. The Golden Gate was completely impassable. Cars were pointed in every direction, and there had been dozens of minor accidents which blocked the lanes and, of course, effectively prevented anyone from following them. She realized. Every vehicle was spattered and splashed with white bird droppings. She looked at her brother and saw with a shock that there were tiny smears of blood on his bottom lip. She pulled a tissue from her pocket. "You're cut," she said urgently, licking the edge of the tissue and dabbing it at her twin's face. Josh pulled her hand away. "Stop! That's disgusting." He touched his lip with his little finger. "I must have bit it. I didn't even feel it." He took the tissue from his sister's hand and rubbed his chin. "It's nothing." Then he smiled quickly. "Did you see the mess the birds left back there?" Sophie nodded. He made a disgusted face. "Now that is going to smell." Sophie leaned back against the seat, relieved that her brother was fine. When she'd seen the blood, she'd been truly frightened, and a thought struck her, and she turned around to look at Flamel. "Did you call up the wind?" He smiled and shook his head. No, I have no control over the elements. The skill rests solely with the elders and a very few rare humans. Sophie looked at Scatty, but the warrior shook her head. Beyond my very limited abilities. But you did summon the wind, Sophie persisted. Flamel handed Sophie back her phone. I just phoned in a request, he said, and smiled. So they made it! We will find out where they are headed next tomorrow when we read chapters 13 and 14. I love you all. I hope you're enjoying the story, and I will talk to you soon.